This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information and to find out how you can volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Kim Zuckert, Tales of the Brass Hedgehog, hedgehog.net. Dear Enemy by Jean Webster. Part 2. The John Grier Home, February 22nd. My dear Gordon, your vigorous and expensive message is here. I know that you have plenty of money, but that is no reason why you should waste it so frivolously. When you feel so bursting with talk that only a 100-word telegram will relieve an explosion, at least turn it into a night lettergram. My orphans can use the money if you don't need it. Also, my dear sir, please use a trifle of common sense. Of course I can't chuck the asylum in the casual manner you suggest. It wouldn't be fair to Judy and Jervis. If you will pardon the statement, they have been my friends for many more years than you, and I have no intention of letting them go hang. I came up here in a spirit of, well, say adventure, and I must see the venture through. You wouldn't like me if I were a short sport. This doesn't mean, however, that I am sentencing myself for life. I am intending to resign just as soon as the opportunity comes. But really, I ought to feel somewhat gratified that the Pendletons were willing to trust me with such a responsible post. Though you, my dear sir, do not suspect it, I possess considerable executive ability and more common sense than is visible on the surface. If I chose to put my whole soul into this enterprise, I could make the rippingest superintendent that any 111 orphans ever had. I suppose you think that's funny. It's true. Judy and Jervis know it, and that's why they asked me to come. So you see, when they have shown so much confidence in me, I can't throw them over in quite the unceremonious fashion you suggest. So long as I'm here, I'm going to accomplish just as much as it is given one person to accomplish every 24 hours. I'm going to turn the place over to my successor with things moving fast in the right direction. But in the meantime, please don't wash your hands of me under the belief that I'm too busy to be homesick, for I'm not. I wake up every morning and stare at Mrs. Lippett's wallpaper in a sort of daze, feeling as though it's some bad dream and I'm not really here. What on earth was I thinking of to turn my back upon my nice, cheerful own home and the good times that by rights are mine? I frequently agree with your opinion of my sanity. But why, may I ask, should you be making such a fuss? You wouldn't be seeing me in any case. Worcester is quite as far from Washington as the John Grier Home, and I will add, for your further comfort, that whereas there is no man in the neighborhood of this asylum who admires red hair, in Worcester there are several. Therefore, most difficult of men, please be appeased. I didn't come entirely to spite you. I wanted an adventure in life, and oh dear, I'm having it. Please write soon and cheer me up. Yours in sackcloth, Sallie. The John Grier Home, February 24th. Dear Judy, you tell Jervis that I'm not hasty at forming judgments. I have a sweet, sunny, unsuspicious nature, and I like everybody almost. But no one could like that Scotch doctor. He never smiles. He paid me another visit this afternoon. I invited him to accommodate himself in one of Mrs. Lippett's electric blue chairs, and then sat down opposite to enjoy the harmony. He was dressed in a mustard-colored homespun with a dash of green and a glint of yellow in the weave, a heather mixture calculated to add life to a dull Scotch moor. Purple socks and a red tie with an amethyst pin completed the picture. Clearly your paragon of a doctor is not going to be of much assistance in pulling up the aesthetic tone of this establishment. During the 15 minutes of his call, he succinctly outlined all the changes he wishes to see accomplished in this institution. He, forsooth! And what, may I ask, are the duties of a superintendent? Is she merely a figurehead to take orders from the visiting physician? It's up wi' the bonnets of McBride and McCrae. I am indignantly yours, Sallie. The John Grier Home, Monday. Dear Dr. McCrae, I am sending this note by Sadie Kate, as it seems impossible to reach you by telephone. Is the person who calls herself Mrs. McGurk and hangs up in the middle of a sentence your housekeeper? If she answers the telephone often, I don't see how your patients have any patience left. As you did not come this morning, per agreement, and the painters did come, I was fain to choose a cheerful corn color to be placed upon the walls of your new laboratory room. I trust there is nothing unhygienic about corn color. Also, if you can spare a moment this afternoon, kindly motor yourself to Dr. Bryce's on Water Street and look at the dentist's chair and appurtenances which are to be had at half price. If all of the pleasant paraphernalia of his profession were here, in a corner of your laboratory, Dr. Bryce could finish his 111 new patients with more dispatch than if we had to transport them separately to Water Street. Don't you think that's a useful idea? It came to me in the middle of the night, but as I never happened to buy a dentist chair before, I'd appreciate some professional advice. Yours truly, S. McBride. The John Grier Home, March 1st. Dear Judy, do stop sending me telegrams. Of course I know that you want to know everything that is happening, and I would send a daily bulletin, but I truly don't find a minute. I am so tired when night comes that if it weren't for Jane's strict discipline, I should go to bed with my clothes on. Later, when we slip a little more into routine and I can be sure that my assistants are all running off their respective jobs, I shall be the regularest correspondent you ever had. It was 5 days ago, wasn't it, that I wrote? Things have been happening in those 5 days. The McCrae and I have mapped out a plan of campaign and are stirring up this place to its sluggish depths. I like him less and less, but we've declared a sort of working truce, and the man is a worker. I always thought I had sufficient energy myself, but when an improvement is to be introduced, I toil along panting in his wake. He is as stubborn and tenacious and bulldogish as a Scotchman can be, but he does understand babies. That is, he understands their physiological aspects. He hasn't any more feeling for them personally than for so many frogs that he might happen to be dissecting. Do you remember Jervis's holding forth one evening for an hour or so about our doctor's beautiful humanitarian ideals? C'est à rire! The man merely regards the JGH as his own private laboratory, where he can try out scientific experiments with no loving parents to object. I shouldn't be surprised any day to find him introducing scarlet fever cultures into the baby's porridge in order to test a newly invented serum. Of the house staff, the only two who strike me as really efficient are the primary teacher and the furnace man. You should see how the children run to Miss Matthews and beg for caresses, and how painstakingly polite they are to the other teachers. Children are quick to size up character. I shall be very embarrassed if they are too polite to me. Just as soon as I get my bearings a little and know exactly what we need, I'm going to accomplish some widespread discharging. I should like to begin with Miss Snaith, but I discovered that she is the niece of one of our most generous trustees and isn't exactly dischargeable. She's a vague, chinless, pale-eyed creature who talks through her nose and breathes through her mouth. She can't say anything decisively and then stop. Her sentences all trail off into incoherent murmurings. Every time I see the woman, I feel an almost uncontrollable desire to take her by the shoulders and shake some decision into her. And Miss Snaith is the one who has had entire supervision of the 17 little tots aged from 2 to 5. But anyway, even if I can't discharge her, I've reduced her to a subordinate position without her being aware of the fact. The doctor has found for me a charming girl who lives a few miles from here and comes in every day to manage the kindergarten. She has big, gentle brown eyes like a cow and motherly manners. She is just 19, and the babies love her. At the head of the nursery I have placed a jolly, comfortable, middle-aged woman who has reared 5 of her own and has a hand with bairns. Our doctor also found her, you see. He is useful. She is technically under Miss Snaith, but is usurping dictatorship in a satisfactory fashion. I can now sleep at night without being afraid that my babies are being inefficiently murdered. You see, our reforms are getting started, and while I acquiesce with all the intelligence at my command to our doctor's basic scientific upheavals, still they sometimes leave me cold. The problem that keeps churning and churning in my mind is, how can I ever instill enough love and warmth and sunshine into those bleak little lives? And I'm not sure that the doctor's science will accomplish that. One of our most pressing intelligent needs just now is to get our records into coherent form. The books have been most outrageously unkept. Mrs. Lippett had a big black account book into which she jumbled any facts that happened to drift her way as to the children's family, their conduct, and their health, but for weeks at a time she didn't trouble to make an entry. If any adopting family wants to know a child's parentage, half the time we can't even tell where we got the child. "Where did you come from, baby dear? The blue sky opened and I am here," is an exact description of their arrival. We need a field worker to travel about the country and pick up all the hereditary statistics she can about our chicks. It will be an easy matter, as most of them have relatives. What do you think of Janet Ware for the job? You remember what a shark she was in economics. She simply battened on tables and charts and surveys. I have also to inform you that the John Grier Home is under